I currently maintains over 350 billion in cash reserves, representing an unprecedented level in his investment history. This figure accounts for roughly 30% of Berkshire Hathaway's entire asset portfolio. Historical analysis shows the last comparable cash to asset ratio occurred in 2004, preceding the 2008 financial downturn. For current market participants, understanding these implications proves essential. This analysis could determine whether you safeguard your capital or experience significant losses during market corrections. Throughout this presentation, you'll learn a comprehensive three-component approach for managing upcoming market conditions. More critically, you'll discover specific actions to implement with your portfolio immediately. Consistently sold stocks across 8 consecutive quarters, a full 2-year period. Primary divestments include Apple, where his ownership decreased from 6% to under 2%. Bank of America holdings also reduced by 4%. These aren't insignificant adjustments. We're discussing billions in realized sales. Occasionally, very occasionally, but it'll happen again. I don't know when. It won't. It could be next week. It could be 5 years off, but it won't be 50 years off. We will be bombarded with offerings that will be glad to have the cash. Reviewing historical precedent, when I previously held over 25% in cash 2004. Immediately before the 2007-2009 financial crisis, nothing positive about that period. It was significantly disruptive. In 2004, his statement indicated finding very few attractive securities available for purchase. He simply couldn't locate reasonably priced opportunities. Therefore, he abstained from buying. Sound familiar? Fast forward to the present moment. Identical situation, different time frame. I recently stated his desire to invest in quality enterprises. You just can't locate them at current valuations. Markets appear expensive across virtually all metrics. The S&P trades at 22 times price to earnings, substantially exceeding the historical average of 18. My indicator reaches 200%. Representing historically elevated territory. The Shiller-KP ratio approximates 33, while typical levels sit around 17. Moreover, my purchase wasn't solely price-driven. I bought it because the Wall Street rule pattern aligned perfectly, slightly earlier than optimal, but perfectly aligned. Over witnessed 15 recessions and 27 bear markets, declining on average by 35%. The typical bear market extends 9 to 10 months. Recent example, 2025 tariffs triggered sharp market movement. Remember 2022. Many people forget we declined 25%. Many don't recall that. COVID produced a 34% drop in just 1 month among the fastest bear markets recorded. The financial crisis minus 57%. The dot-com collapse minus 49%. Markets crash regularly. It's not whether they will, they always do. It's when. But here's positive news: markets recover following every bear market bottom. The S&P has recovered and gained on average. I need different colored markers for this optimistic section. 44% in the first year, plus 73% over the subsequent 3 years, and 121% over 5 years afterward. You want market exposure, particularly during crashes. I don't exclusively wait for crashes to invest. Incidentally, he's an active investor seeking quality opportunities constantly, but becomes more selective when markets are expensive, like currently. When markets do crash, he possesses substantial cash for purchasing opportunities. Consider it like shopping. You buy certain items at regular prices, but stock up during sales. That's essentially his strategy. iGenius rests on 3 pillars. Incidentally, I had a mentor. He didn't spontaneously become brilliant. His mentor was Benjamin Graham, who also had mentors. It traces back continuously, right? Back to the earliest investors who were apparently excellent stock pickers. I explicitly states, don't imitate me. I'm an active investor, which isn't appropriate for everyone. You must choose your path. Active or passive, my approach. Actually, 50-50. Some call it schizophrenic. I select individual stocks. My research is those companies. That requires additional time and effort, potentially higher risk, but potentially much greater reward. However, it demands knowledge. You need skill acquisition. Passive investing. What slightly frustrates me is that active investors always say, don't do what we do. We're exceptional. I don't think it's appropriate for most people to be active investors. I think people should be passive investors. Most people should be passive investors. That's his consistent message. Essentially purchase an index fund like VTI or similar and maintain it. Minimal time commitment, lower risk, steady average returns. But if it's sufficient for me, why isn't it sufficient for you? That's my persistent question. However, there's definitely merit in the ABB strategy, always be buying. Invest every single week, fortnight or month. I do it weekly. You can buy funds like SPY, though probably not the ideal example because the expensio is relatively high. I'd probably consider something like VTI, which I believe is 0.03 or 0.05%. Inform me in the comments if I'm accurate or mistaken. But yes, that's my recommendation. Just purchase the index. If you're a passive investor, don't want involvement. If market volatility scares you, then just buy a major index fund like the S&P 500. Buy the one with lowest fees and add to it weekly or monthly. That's it. And that's your sole responsibility. Just add capital to that. You don't need to worry about the market. You don't need to worry about crashes. Stop reading news. Stop watching this channel. It's completely unnecessary. Just keep investing. Now, if you want to capitalize more on opportunities, what does I do? Well, there are several opportunities. There are economic opportunities where the entire market collapses, like COVID or the 2008 financial crisis, because the credit rating agencies were either extraordinarily incompetent or corrupt. It's for them to determine which they prefer to admit. People don't change their health insurance provider frequently, even if they are potentially problematic companies. I said potentially since I didn't accuse them of being problematic. I'm just saying there's some tension perhaps between them and their premium payers. So what are the current risks? We still have relatively high interest rates. Chair Powell just announced he will not relent or something similar, but he'll be out of the position by 2026, and he'll be replaced with a more compliant appointee, one of Trump's appointees. But inflation remains fairly high, and I think they're going to maintain it high. I think, in fact, they might even want to keep it slightly higher. Why higher inflation? What does it do? Well, it lowers the dollar's value. Why is that? If that's beneficial? Well, if you had, say, you had 38 trillion of debt, wouldn't it be advantageous if you could lower the value of that? That's what the government's doing. But consumer spending also isn't very strong. The U.S. would be in a recession if it wasn't for substantial government spending and AI infrastructure investments. So definitely something to consider with the stocks and sectors you're selecting currently. You don't want to randomly buy everything. At least that's my perspective. Now, number 3 is be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. My famous quote, it's the hardest part of investing. Sounds simple, but it's very difficult to execute. The financial media profits from your emotions. I know it. If I publish a title with a negative connotation, we get approximately 17% more views than if we publish one with positive connotations. So I don't enjoy making pessimistic videos because I think it's depressing. So I don't. But sometimes there are serious topics requiring attention. And my goal is always to provide actionable outcomes that actually educate you and help you make better decisions rather than just scare you excessively, which is probably the better tactic if we wanted to sell something aggressively. When the market is performing well, the media drives FOMO. Everyone's like, buy this stock and you'll make 100x returns and so forth. Well, people buy and then they panic sell when we're at the market bottom and we're down 30% or down 57% like the last major crashes. And then they are so scared and traumatized with PTSD from the stock market that they don't buy again until we're at the market top again. Now, if that's you, you have 2 options. One, just take all your savings for the year, drive to Midtown Manhattan. That's where all the Wall Street bankers operate. And you see them, they wear little vests. They've got all the little logos on them in case they get lost and they need to be returned to their bank. They're like, oh, this is one of the Goldmans. Just return him back to that lobby. He'll be fine. And you could just give them your money because that's basically what you're doing. Now, the second thing you could do is actually acquire investing skills. The simplest skill of investing is just automate the process and just don't ever access your brokerage account. You can install all your software because you're scared of yourself. But I would argue you might want to take it slightly higher because you're capable of this, because you actually earned the money. And I always think if you earned the money, I think you are capable to manage that money, because the hard part was actually bringing the money in, and you did that. My hope is for you to achieve freedom. But don't sit on the sidelines. If you miss the 10 best days, what do you think happens? It cuts your returns in half, because you know what happens. The market does this, and then it does that. So you sold somewhere here, you sell here. I could spell the word sell, told you about bankers' intelligence. But then you miss the rally on the way up. And that's the problem. So the longer you hold, if you hold 20 years, you basically have a 100% chance of making money. There's nothing that guaranteed, so maybe let's call it 99%, but you get the idea. You hold 1 year, you have about a 75% chance of making money. Now, you could be unlucky and you could be in that 25% where you don't, but the longer you hold, generally speaking, the more money you make. So if you're a passive investor, automate the process. Set up automated transfers, automated buys. Keep it simple. Don't install all your brokerage software. You don't want them. The market crashes, you will be an emotional wreck. You will do things you will regret. Have 3 to 6 months of emergency funds so you never need to touch your investments. If you're more of an active investor, well, learn to be selective. Have some money on the side for opportunities. Create a watch list of quality companies and learn the skill of managing money. So what I'm actually saying is that in 2 weeks, you can acquire pretty much any skill, and that might be managing money, or it might be doing handstands. You can debate which one's more useful and has a greater impact on your life. But you know, once you have time on your hands, you can do things on your hands, and I'm very happy with it. So what I'm saying to you, the hard part is not the learning, because everybody has 2 weeks. We all have the same amount of time. The hard part is starting now, because if you start tomorrow or next week or on Saturday or on Sunday or at Christmas or in the new year, that'll never happen. That's what one of my lovely mentors taught me. He basically said, someday is never. And I think he's right. I wish you great success. The billionaire who predicted the 2008 crash and built a $2.2 billion fortune just issued a warning that could change everything about how you invest from here.